I want to wrap up this section on text by talking about some available and even some common elements that you can use on the text in your documents. We have the super and subscript tags that you can use. Think about HTML being built for documents, research papers. This is pretty critical to be able to have superscripts and subscripts, whether it's for creating notation of equations and having powers, or for calling out footnotes or endnotes that you want to allow somebody to go reference. We also have the cite element, which is simply a wrapper around a person's name or some text where you want to cite work by another person. And so typically this will get rendered out in the browser as some italicized text. We have the abbreviation and acronym elements, and these allow you to use these items, these acronyms and abbreviations in your document, but also to provide the expanded text that goes along with that as an attribute. This allows somebody usually to hover over the acronym or abbreviation you're using and then be able to see the expanded out text. So it's very helpful. I remember from my English classes, it was always recommended that the first time you use that acronym or that abbreviation somewhere that you also pair with it the full name. So these allow you to do that. We have the emphasis and the strong elements. The emphasis is typically rendered as italics and strong as bold. These are some tags that were originally there, and typically today you would use a style sheet if you actually want to have text get rendered with a particular font style in your document. So you might make something a span and then use style sheets to apply that there. We've got a few others for code and samples, as well as keyboard and variables. Again, this was built by techies, so documents that you're creating that might have code or might have sample output, or if you have keyboard input or variables that you're specifying, you can use these elements to call those out. Typically, the browser will render those often like it does the pre-formatted text in terms of the font face it uses, but generally won't pre-format or do other things with it. Then we have the quotes. So block quote, we saw an example earlier where you'd have a chunk of text and you want to have it rendered out as a quote. Typically that becomes an indented block level element with all the text in it. And the Q element is for inline quotes. So more of an inline element, much like a span. If you're in the middle of a sentence or you just want to call out that somebody is being quoted and put that text inside the Q element. Now with these, for the block quote and the quote, you can also specify a URL to tie into where that citation is coming from. So you can indicate that this particular quote is coming from a particular document out on the web and give somebody the ability to reference that information. Depending on the browser, that may or may not render out in any discernible way, but it is good to provide that reference in there if you're quoting someone else's work.